Welcome to another episode of Home Sweet Home. My name is Rod McCall.
Yeah, I felt it over here.
Could you?
I felt it.
And exactly what did you feel?
I just felt energized. Like I was ready to enter the ring and
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right.
And I'm Bryce Runge. You didn't feel that one. That was very just there.
You want to try it again?
No, I'm good. Why would I do anything after what you just came through with?
Well, I thought maybe you might feel kind of inclined to, swing and a miss, try again.
Well, I didn't necessarily miss. I just didn't meet your level of energy coming to the introduction of our podcast.
Oh, well, it went a whimper.
Yeah. So what are we talking about today, Mr. McCall?
Well, so a lot of different things, float through my mind. And
we don't need to hear them all.
No, and many of them are not meant to leave my head because because that's just not necessary. So anyway.
Well, it's good to know that you have developed some sort of a filter.
Yeah, well,
I wouldn't say it's filter-proof, foolproof.
Oh, gosh, no.
Whatever, but there is something there.
Oh, yes, it does. And every now and then it comes in handy.
Yeah.
So, I've been, okay, so I get all these different, I'm on various news feeds. And I get different things that come through, sometime on my Twitter account, sometimes in my news feed. And this one happened to come through here recently on my news feed. And it came from a CNBC website, from their Psychology and Relationships tab.
Okay.
And it was talking about blended families.
Ah. And
I thought, I'm in a blended family. And it's challenging. And, Sherry and I have had our shares of, button heads as a consequence. And I'm told that is very common in blended families. And that, in fact, second marriages have a high rate of divorce, usually focused around blended families. Many of my kids that I have in the classroom have had over the years. You've got blended families there too.
Right.
And I think it is tough on all concerned. And I thought, well, maybe today might be a good day to kind of explore this particular article. If you're okay and up to joining me on this adventure.
Well, I do think it's okay. Again, this is your show. No, I do think it's a great topic. Being in education for as long as I was, I had many a conversation with children who had or living in blended families, or in divorce, headed that way. It sucks. I get it, and I'm in that situation as well. And like you, we've Suzanne and I have. I would say we've butted heads, and I would say majority of it hasn't been with the child. It's been the co-parenting, if you will.
Well,
that makes sense.
No, it does. And interestingly enough, I've actually found another article on co-parenting. So maybe we can do that one day soon.
Well, and you know what? I was listening to you talking about your feeds and what you, what comes into your feed and what you're reading quite a bit. And, so we cover a lot of psychological and relational things, and rightfully so. That's the aim of our podcast, is to cover those topics and use our experiences to help families create an open, communicative, thriving family dynamic. And paraphrased our mission, if you are, why, if you will. But this is a good one. This is going to hit. Obviously, it hits close to home for both of us, and I'm sure for many of our listeners. So,
well, because and it's tough. family is by its very nature challenging.
Right.
Even in the best of families, at the best of times.
Oh,
and those don't, anyway,
and they won't because, it involves people and people aren't perfect.
No.
And that's A-okay. And that's how we were designed.
Well, I suppose. Good thing I'm surrounded by a lot of people who forgive my idiosyncrasies.
Sure.
Is that what we want to call them?
Yes, we'll call them that. We could have, used the word rodisms.
Oh, we could. But we'll save that for another day.
Right. So what do you got for us then?
All right,
You've got a blended family talk.
Well, I do.
Sounds like.
Yeah. And the article's written by a person by the name, and I'm going to butcher it, so I hope that whoever wrote this is not too offended, but I believe their name is Aditi Shrikant. I don't know if I said it right, but anyway.
Sounds like you nailed it.
Okay, well, swing and a miss again. So anyway, this person put together the article. And I found it intriguing, especially when they said that second marriages have a higher rate of divorce than first marriages, at least according to the U.S. Census data. And I thought, oh my gosh, because Sherry and I both said, look, we ain't going through divorce again.
Right.
She may bury me in the backyard, but she ain't going to divorce me.
Right.
And I'm kind of grateful for that because it can be very stressful. Sometimes I go, am I pushing too far? Mm-hmm. Am I not doing enough that she's going to go, fine, there's the door.
Right.
Because, it was so horrible going through that experience. I don't want to do it again.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there are people out there that enjoy it. But I don't know who in their right mind likes to go through that pain and suffering, because that's ultimately what it is. It's a death of something, and you go through the grieving process. But there are people who have been married multiple times, and no disrespect to them, but
that ain't for me.
Man, I always joke with Susan. I don't always, because we don't typically talk about that conversation. Nor do we go that route. But I'll sometimes joke with her. I said, if you ever try and leave me, don't worry, I'll go with you. I will go with you. No, but yeah, this is interesting because...
Well, they talked to, or the author of this article pulled some information from a psychologist in Denver. And she said that one of the top reasons that second marriages fail, is because of all the baggage that each partner kind of brings with them that their married partner kind of gets to inherit. And I will say that when we going through the divorce in the divorce group, the counselor therapist that ran the group said 18 to 24 months was how long it was going to take for the average person to work through their own issues, address their own baggage. Mm-hmm. And that if you can't, don't, or won't address your baggage, then you're going to take it right with you into your next marriage.
Right.
And so that's where Sherry and I had worked real hard to address these things so we didn't carry it with us.
Right.
But yet I know plenty of people who jumped right back into the marriage wagon, and they didn't take time to address. And so I think that might be, what this psychologist, in Denver was kind of referencing. Mm-hmm. And then when you throw in not only your baggage of, your issues that you played a part in, into the divorce. Because, divorce doesn't just, you don't wake up one day and go, oh, I don't think I want to be married to you. It's a progression of things that are done.
Right.
And so when you move in to your second marriage, or your, God forbid, third or fourth, you're taking with you that unresolved issue or issues. Mm-hmm. And, oh, by the way, if you got kids, you're bringing the kids with you.
Yep.
And so that by itself and that's usually kind of where Sherry and I have just an occasional headbutt is what's the right thing to do. And, well, most of the time I gives my thoughts and suggestions, but we ultimately do whatever she wants to do.
Got it.
Because I don't know that she's ever said it. I don't think she's ever said it at all in actuality. But I feel like, well, at the end of the day, it's your kids. I'm just a bystander here.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think I've gotten better at being a bonus parent.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I have mastered that as well as I could or should.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what this psychologist, let's see, what's her name? Lisa Marie Bobby of the Growing Self and Counseling and Coaching Center in Denver, Colorado. And so with her suggestions, she's actually said or came up with a list that the author identified as basically four tips that can be successful for a blended family.
Okay.
So I think that it is worth, I found them interesting as I read through them. And so I thought, well, let's give it a roll and see what flies here.
All right. Let's do it.
All right. Well, the first one.
That's all I got. Yeah, let's do it. Let's go.
Okay. Well, again, you're filled with lots of great, commentary. I appreciate that. It's kind of like in the movie Major League.
Yeah.
And I'm Bob Euchre, and you're the other guy that doesn't get a word in edgewise.
That's exactly right.
So
I'm just the bystander over here, and whatever. At the end of the day, this is your show, and whatever you say goes. So I'm just going to sit over here in this little corner that I was allowed to have in my own house. Sorry.
Really?
Go on.
I tell you what. Would you like to lead?
You're even using my computer today.
Well, it's not my fault I forgot. Well, I guess, yes, it is my fault I forgot.
Well, I wasn't certainly at your house this morning. That'd be awkward. Anyways, what are these tips for creating this successful blended family, Rod? Break it down, please.
All right. Well, the first one that she addressed or brings up is this thing called a mental map. And because a common source of conflict is each parent bringing in their idea of how kids are supposed to be raised, well, especially if the kids are already partly grown, well, you weren't there at the beginning. You didn't have these conversations of, well, hey, let's work together and do this. Hey, let's work together and do that. And you come to a compromise.
Right.
When you get remarried, well, you're already inheriting a way that things have already been done. And so it's kind of hard to make a transition. And so that's kind of where I find myself.
Right.
This is the way I was raised. This is the way that I was trying to raise Eric, which isn't always the way that Sherry was raising her kids, the way she was raised and how she was, wanting to raise her own children. And so they're saying that it's important to have, these kind of explicit conversations without the kids around to kind of figure out, okay, what's going to be each parent's role in the relationship with the children. Sherry and I did not do this, and I kind of wish now we would have.
Yeah. Well, I would say a lot of parents don't. Especially blended. I would say even a lot of parents in general, stuck together parents, don't have these conversations.
Okay.
Especially young, and you have a kid young, and you're just not really thinking. You just have a kid, and well, here you go. You don't have these conversations. That's called, and we've talked about this before. It's in my book about living by default, not by design.
Well, okay, fair point, but sometimes
I know it is.
You weren't planning to have a kid, just surprise.
Well, there are those things, but you still could design how you want to parent.
Well, fair point. Okay, okay, that makes sense.
But what I'm saying is a lot of people just don't have the conversation.
Well, I think you're right, and I think that's kind of what this person, this Dr. Bobby, is kind of saying too. And that's where your mental map comes in, where you kind of map out, okay, these are going to be your areas of specialty. These will be my areas of specialty. This is what we might do when we have crossover. We'll kind of talk things out. I know that my mom and dad would do things that I thought was kind of bizarre at the time that I look back now and I go, okay.
You get it.
Most of the time it was mom would make it as, she was pretty much the disciplinarian and dad was the heavy hitter.
Mm-hmm.
And mom would decide what was right and wrong and dad would be the enforcer. And they, but every now and then they were, especially as we got older, and you started, exploring and pushing the boundaries, started going out with friends and, driving cars and dating and all that other stuff that goes on, as you get into high school and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents a lot of times would have, well, let us think about it. Let us talk about it and we'll get back to you.
Mm-hmm.
Which I kind of look back now and go, that's actually very clever on their part that they would take the time to kind of maybe in this way mind map
Right.
what would, this kind of doesn't fit into organically your realm or my realm.
Yeah.
When it came to like cooking, cleaning, laundry, household chores, stuff like that, that was mom's domain.
Yeah.
But when it came to outdoor stuff, mowing the yard, when it came to anything that would be considered into dad's world,
Right.
Automotive maintenance,
Right.
house repair, stuff like that, then that fell into dad's domain.
Right.
And a lot of times there might be times where my dad would say, look, we're going to have a conversation. And sometimes he would even preface it by saying, you're not going to like where this is going to go either. And so now that, and I found that I was kind of raising Eric in that blend. But even though his mom and I had had many conversations and I thought we had a map, she deviated and went her own direction. Sherry and I have never really had this conversation. And as a result, it's created an occasional opportunity for a disagreement.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I go, you know what? Hey, it's your kid.
Yeah.
And most of the time, it turns out she's more right than I am.
Yeah.
I don't know that I tell her that as often.
Well, she listens to the podcast. So.
Yes, she now knows.
Way to go. I'll go back and delete it.
Edit that out.
Edit. Well, no, I was going to say it's hard, especially coming in late when the kids are older, to come in and, well, here's a new perspective when you have people who are, well, this is how we've always done it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to get people, and especially the kids, if it's, they're comfortable in that area, to get them to make some adjustments.
Well, and I think
it seems it can be tricky. And I think, coming in, if I'm coming in and the kids are a little bit older, maybe I don't want to.
Well, and you throw in the fact that, okay,
I don't want to disrupt anything or start a fight or an argument.
Absolutely. And when you first meet the kids, you're just dating their parent, their mom, their dad.
Yeah.
And so, you're kind of tiptoeing.
Right.
And then as that relationship grows and you wind up getting married, well, now you're taking on even more role. Mm-hmm. Well, and if you've got the, if your new spouse's ex is around, well, now they've got, you're the bonus parent. And so it's kind of touch and go. And, now I think the other thing too is if you bring, if Eric was still around, that would add a whole nother layer of dynamic because now it's my son with her son and daughter. Mm-hmm. And how does that play out?
Right.
And, how do you discipline my kid? How does I discipline her kids? And it's kind of like, well, you can't tell me what to do. You're not my parent.
Right.
You're
not my dad, like the commercial.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting, and that's kind of what they're saying here. Talk about it before it becomes an issue.
Right. I think that Suzanne and I, we did a fairly decent job. I wouldn't say we've gone, went to real deep on it. And Braddock's was younger.
Yeah.
But she knew her role, and she knew that she was a bonus mom, and that was a privilege. And it, like, all the stars aligned with how we met and being blended, all that. And Braddock's has just been amazing. And like, we had conversations about like discipline and how we're treating our kids, obviously, and how he needs to be treated. And she knew that, well, his mom is close by. I'm not his mom, but I'm bonus mom, and just like I'm his dad, right? And so it was never me trying to implement, this is your new mom or something, right? And it's right. This is your new mom, and not alienate the other mom, because that's not the case. The case is he has a mom, and she knew that going in, and she's treated it like that, and she understands the bonus mom role, and it's worked out very well. And so, but again, we have Braddock's he's a rare kid, and so, anyways, I'm interjecting those things. My point is, I don't want to say we really drew out a full mental map of what it looked like, but we did discuss some of those things.
Okay.
Like you had mentioned.
Well, and I think that's the thing that they're saying here. And the last thing that is strongly suggested, and I believe this wholeheartedly, is communicate clearly. Say this is, this is what I'm thinking. And I think at the end of the day, I mean, it doesn't really say it, but the other part is, when you got that map, bring the kids in and explain.
Right.
But I guess maybe that ties in with then the second suggestion or second tip, and that is set boundaries. And I think that that's kind of key. I'm a firm believer, and this is what we talked about in our divorce group, when you're dealing with your ex, set boundaries. Look, this is, you stay in your lane, I'm going to stay in my lane. Well, I think you do the same thing kind of here. You set boundaries, with your spouse, but you also set boundaries with the kids. And it kind of ties then, it's an extenuation, as I understand, of the mental map.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't really go into it, but that's how I'm kind of perceiving, that you're setting boundaries. I think boundaries gives room so that way everybody knows what to do and, how to deal with things. When you don't, and this is something that I struggle with, when you don't have clear-cut boundaries and something happens, and it's kind of like, well, somebody needs to step up and do something.
Right.
And when we don't do something, or you don't remind somebody, hey, you need to stay in your lane.
Right.
You are really overstepping your boundaries. Well, then now you run, the whole gambit of hurt feelings, misunderstandings, a whole bunch of other things. But, setting boundaries. And that's hard. I don't know that Sherry and I have ever had that conversation either.
Yeah. I
mean, maybe we have, and I just maybe wasn't listening very well.
No, I think that's good. I think it's spot on. Again, like you said, it's hard. It's hard to set boundaries. And when you do, it seems even harder to be disciplined.
To stick to it.
Stick to them and not allow the other party to cross over into the lane that they shouldn't. I've had to deal with that. And it's, we may have discussed some things, but not, again, I don't know. I think I know that boundaries are healthy and they're good as long as you stick with them and you're disciplined in those areas. But I don't know.
Well, that, I guess, brings us then to their third tip. And the third tip says, recognize your place. And I mean, in fact, Dr. Bobby says, I don't know that they're a doctor, but we're going to elevate her to a doctor status.
There you go.
She said that a step parent should be a friendly adult to the stepchildren. You're not an additional parent. which kind of ties in. You're not the biological parent in charge of.
Mm-hmm.
You're the bonus parent. You are that, I care about you and I care about your happiness, your success.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of feel obliged to, kind of like we as teachers,
Right.
we're that friendly adult, and you're going to make the ultimate decision, but I'm going to try and help guide you.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that I didn't do very well with her kids. And I think a lot of it was because of the way the divorce kind of was going there those last few months and how it ultimately ended.
Right.
With Eric's death, with her committing suicide, with me being left holding the bag going, what the heck just happened?
Right.
And trying to deal with all the grief and the trauma of all of that. Well, her kids were kind of caught up in the middle of stuff, and I just I wasn't in the right frame of mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because we were best friends. And so I was, hanging around with her and her kids and her family. Right. And I don't know that I recognized my place.
Sure.
And so I think that created some problems that we're slowly fixing and resolving. And I think that that's kind of where I'm trying to be now, is
Right.
that friendly adult.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, you can do whatever you want. I can tell you that based on my experiences, this is what I did. I'm going to caution you, don't do what I did.
Mm-hmm.
Or this is what I did when I was in a similar situation, and the results weren't too bad. So if you want to try it, go right ahead.
Right.
And I think as I have been able to do that more and more successful in trying to know my place,
Yeah.
I've gotten better reaction from the kids. And I say kids, they're in their
Young
mid
adults.
to late 20s.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're 14 years old.
Right.
They're grown kids, for crying out loud. They're grown. Yeah, they'll always be kids to me.
Right.
They'll get married maybe and have kids, hopefully.
They're still going to be the kids.
Oh, they will be. I guess that's how my mom always referred to me.
Right.
My sisters and I, the kids are coming home.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
but anyway.
So, just to maybe push back on something here, she says a step parent should be a friendly adult. Is that what you said?
Uh-huh.
And not an additional parent. Is that correct?
That's what they're saying.
So I wonder, what's her stance on that?
Well,
it's a step parent.
Yes.
Like I'm trying to see both sides here. Like me personally, we say bonus. We say bonus.
Sure. Which I like.
Right?
I like.
We
that
just
term.
don't like the step. It just kind of seems negative, if
Yeah.
you will. So we've always said bonus, and again, she knows her place, and that was discussed. It wasn't like me imposing this. She wants to be that friendly adult, if you will. But I see the I kind of like it takes a village.
And I think that's kind of what they're saying here. When you are, especially early on in that remarriage, in that dating, engaged early marriage, you're the bonus parent.
Right.
And if over time that changes and you become more of that relationship with you and your new spouse's children develops into that strong, loving relationship that you hope it will, that's fine.
Right.
And that's something that just kind of grows and nurtures, is organic on its own.
Yeah.
But what I think I understand her saying now, I think it also plays a part in the age of the kid.
Right.
But I'm saying if the kid is 5, 6, 7, I think that's a whole lot different than if they're 14, 15, 16.
Right.
And so, like I say, early on, you're going to be, and I saw this with my sister's husband, Chris. He seemed to be kind of a bit of a sounding board. Mm-hmm. He was also kind of a backstop. trying to, okay, look, this is what your mom said.
Right.
So, trying to, I guess, be this friendly adult,
Yeah.
and back up my sister, but in a way that was, I don't know, necessarily very threatening,
Right.
but just kind of a firm person there.
Yeah.
And I think that's what this person is saying. And so
Right.
early on, be that friendly adult.
Sure.
If over time you grow and develop a strong relationship, then yeah, you can maybe become, you can almost become like a second dad, a second mom,
Right.
and move past the bonus stage. And you just, because I think part of this also means don't call me mom. Don't tell these stepchildren to call me mom,
Right.
or to call me dad.
So you just opened up a segue because I'm thinking about this, and I know there's a lot of people
Okay.
and maybe you could shed some light on this because what about the people who you've got two heavily involved parents who remarry, but one of them is almost forcing that child to not only call but view that step parent, the other one coming in as the real one.
See, that is...
Maybe that's a loaded question. Maybe that's a whole different other topic, but there are people who deal with that.
Well, so...
Especially if you've got two really involved parents, but then they're blended, but the other one is being it's like forced upon them. You're going to call them mom, or you're going to call them dad. You're going to view them, and almost like alienating the other one.
And to an extent, you're absolutely right. And that is where co-parenting is extremely tough. And yes, that's something we can do for a whole different episode. But because this is my bailiwick, this is my area of interest, expertise. I've done tons of research. That's where, again, Eric's Place,
Eric's Place of Hope,
is coming from. That's where, the book For the Love of Eric is all about, talking again about the issues that can be. And I think it is absolutely, it is wrong to have the biological parent say that the step parent has to be called mom or dad. Because yes, that is an alienating tactic that tries to push then the other biological parent out of the child's mind, memory, purview, whatever you want to call it. And so that is wrong. I will say straight up that every kid deserves the opportunity to have a healthy, loving relationship with both of their biological parents. Now, if one of the biological parents doesn't do what they need to do to be involved in kind of foster and nurture that, well, that's estrangement, and that's shame on that parent.
Right.
But I think that where possible, I think that both parents should be given a full and equal opportunity to be mom or dad to their own children. And so, no, I disagree with the idea that you would be forced. Now, if the child organically decides that they want to, they've developed that relationship with this, with the step parent, the bonus parent, and they, after a while decide that they want to call you mom, to call you dad.
Right.
That's fine. And you can accept that. You can, say that's fine. Are you sure? But make sure that is the kid 100%.
Right.
What the kid wants to do.
Yeah, and you're not manipulating the child into something
because, I mean, kids are easily manipulated.
Yep.
That's why you have child soldiers. Because they're easily manipulated.
Right.
And that's where our role as a teacher is kind of at work here too. So anyway, the last
thank you. I know we went over on that one.
We did, but I'll go to the last one here, the last tip, and this is where I struggle probably the most of the four, and that is not to take things personally. And so when the kid says, well, you're not my parent, you're not my mom, you're not my dad,
right.
That's just a kid lashing out. And I struggle with this because you know what? I want to love you.
Yeah.
I want you to love me the way I want to love you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but a lot of times, the kids have a lot of animosity because of the divorce. And that can be maybe a wide variety of issues at play. All right. But the kid may not want to warm up to you at first, especially because they're afraid that if I warm up to you, then I'm betraying my love for the absent parent.
Right.
And so it's our job as the step or bonus parent to let the kids grow naturally and, foster that development, especially if you're bringing kids into the situation. I mean, again, Suzanne didn't bring a child into your guys' marriage.
Right.
I didn't bring, I would have brought Eric, but his mom had a different idea.
Right.
But so I kind of came into the marriage with Sherry without any kids. But if you do have kids, I have some friends that they have done amazing job blending both families together. And that's kind of what you want. And that's kind of where I think this idea of these tips go into play, to create, set this mind map, develop what your procedures, policies are going to be with this mental map, set the boundaries, know kind of your place, and then when things kind of begin to go off the rails, don't take it personally.
Right.
Because, it's, and that, like I say, that's the hardest for me.
Yeah.
But what this Dr. Bobby is saying is that it's tough, but if you work together, that over time you can make the family a new family that everybody will be actually happy. It's tough. It won't be perfect. It's not going to be Leave It to Beaver here.
No.
Of course, that might be an old adage. People don't know Leave It to Beaver, but
oh no, it definitely is old.
Okay, well, yeah, almost as old. Well, anyway, so, but again, the idea, this fantastical belief that family's going to be perfect, well, that's not going to happen.
Right.
But I think that with these 4 tips, a blended family can be a lot better.
Right.
And the kids can be happy, mom and dad can be happy, and like I say, it won't be TV land.
No.
But it can be something that makes people happy and you can avoid going through divorce number 2.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds like that, implementing these tips, these 4 steps or whatever, will definitely help create that thriving, if you will, or point you toward a thriving blended family. And so, again, ultimately, that's what we hope to help with on this podcast. And I think today you hit the nail on the head with this one and brought up a good topic, because I think a lot of people are struggling in this.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I know I am.
So,
but anyway, well,
I think you talked a little long today, Rod. That's
Sorry.
okay. Our viewers love you, or our listeners love you. Viewers? No, because they're not. Anyways.
Hey, I've told you before, I have a face for radio.
You sure do.
All right, well, then we'll put a pin in this one. And until next time, I'm Rod.
I'm Bryce.